Hello, I am Joshua P. Warren, and this is Joshua P. Warren Daily. And I have a great, fun, easy manifestation exercise for you. This is good. I'm telling you, you might be able to use this every single day. It's such a wonderful exercise. It applies in so many different areas of your life. It involves butterflies. And I will explain it all to you. Also, I just want to say right up front here at the top of this podcast, this is your last reminder now. If you would like to get one of the true golden ratio antenna pendants, I am only taking orders again for about another 24 hours or so. And so if you want to get one of those, I'm going to cut it all off, and then of course I'll have them made and sent to you. So again, if you're interested in getting one of those, go to joshuapwarren.com, go to the curiosity shop, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you'll see a little Easter egg there for you. It's a little symbol, looks kind of like a labyrinth, no writing. You click that symbol. If that symbol is there and clickable, then you should be able to go and watch the video and learn about the golden ratio pendant. Oh boy, let me tell you what. Who doesn't want a little more order from the chaos right now? Because it really does seem like the world is going to shit, doesn't it? Every single time you turn on the TV, you're like, what is it going to be today? And it's so important for you to stay on top of your positive manifestations every single day, because that is creating your reality. Let me remind you, I understand every time you turn on the TV, it looks like it's worse and worse, and that's because that this is what the news media focuses on. They always have. The world is a big place. It's a complicated place. At any given moment in the world, there's something bad happening somewhere. Okay, there are wars, there are riots, there is poverty, there's disease. It's always been that way. And I mean, even if you believe that there once was a Garden of Eden, well, even that one got screwed up, right? So all throughout human history, no human has ever lived on this planet for a period of time without this shit always happening somewhere out there. There is no such thing as a utopia here on this plane. And so what I mean is you shouldn't ignore the fact that there are bad things that do happen on this planet, like some insensitive ostrich, sticking its ignorant head in the sand because you don't want to see it or hear about it. But remember what I'm always telling you, sometimes seeing stuff and hearing about it doesn't do you any good, because what you have to focus on is your own personal sphere of reality. Okay, you start there. Now, it's great over time for you to expand that sphere. You start with your friends and your family and your loved ones and your neighborhood and each and every person that you interact with, every creature that you interact with. That's where you start. And if you do a good job, your circle of influence can get bigger and bigger, and then maybe someday you'll want to tackle the world. But don't start there, okay? Focus on making your life as good and positive and happy and safe and productive and abundant as possible. That's what you have to do, because you can't trust what you're being seen by other people who have an agenda to sell you fear, okay? It's not possible. So that's why it's really important for me to talk to you about this exercise, that it doesn't cost you a dime. It's easy, it's free. A child can do it. As a matter of fact, a child would probably do it better than most adults. But just to recap, I intended to leave you a podcast sooner since my last one. I find myself saying that more and more, because as the quickening happens and world events pick up, my life is a part of all that. So, I do work in media, and I did an impromptu appearance on Coast to Coast AM this week, which went great. I mean, I talked about a lot of stuff off the cuff, even some things I've not talked about on this podcast. And I've had just such a week of just overwhelming responses from people all over the world. Emails, I'm going to read you some of it. Emails, purchases. I can't tell you how many people have purchased the golden ratio antenna Pendant. It's just tons of them. So that's a really cool thing that people understand why that I love it so much, and why to take advantage of it. So there's been a lot of that going on. A lot of people are waking up to manifestation because they're realizing that if you don't manifest positive things, then there's entropy. Everything will fall apart and it will become negative and chaotic. And one of the reasons that I think that this year is going to just get worse, and I hate to say that, but if you're just watching the news, it's just going to get worse because it's an election year, at least here in the United States. Okay, so November, I think November the 3rd or 2nd, I think it's the 3rd this year, is going to be like the big election day for the president and a lot of these governors and stuff. And so for the next 5 or so months, it's just going to continue to be chaos every time you turn on the news. And the reason is because these days, politicians have become so fucking ruthless, so fucking ruthless, that it seems as if they, in many cases, had rather see the citizens unhappy and fighting over things than keep everybody stable and happy, because they think, hey, if I can make some of these people unhappy, then they'll come to my side. I can. People are in a weak state when they're unhappy because they're trying to change and they want to be happy. And so at this point, you say you have a problem. I can fix it though, and it's a terrible system in that regard, that politicians are able to benefit by, instead of having some respect for other people's differing opinions and views, and some respect for everybody's offices, and having a little humility, they pretend like every single day is campaign day, where they are out there trying to tear us apart and tear the other person down without caring about the net health of the society. And I'm not saying that every politician does that, but certainly some of the most significant ones do that, and that's because the media gives them attention. So here we are, as the whole world has gone through this coronavirus COVID-19 deal, we're just finally starting to get some stuff opened up, really on a wide scale. Here in the United States, for example, well, of course, I'm in Las Vegas. And so this weekend, for the first time, some bars are starting to open with, a lot of restrictions, low capacity, social distancing, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, what happens now here in this country? A lot of bars and stuff that started opening, that opened yesterday, now they've had to shut right back down because of the protests that are happening all across our country. And look, whenever we see something terrible happen to somebody, there has to be big consequences. But obviously, you cannot solve the problem by creating more negativity. It's like two wrongs don't make a right. Okay, so it's really disturbing to see that a lot of these folks who've been struggling in our society, who have nothing to do with some of the things that people are protesting about, are now hurting even more because they can't even conduct their business. So, look, anyway, here in Las Vegas, this is an interesting time for me, interesting timing, because this weekend was the original weekend for my conference. It was supposed to start on Friday, May 29th, which was also my father Danny's birthday. So happy birthday, Dad. He had a great time, and obviously, even though I wasn't there to share it with him in person, I talked to him and my mom and everybody's. They had a wonderful May 29th birthday experience there. And so, but yeah, this weekend would have been my conference. that I had to postpone, and which I had already been advertising as my last conference ever, because, well, I'm really busy and the world's become really unpredictable. And I think this is a case in point. I mean, it's hard to plan a conference anymore because you don't know if the rug's going to get pulled out from underneath you. And Millennium Fandom, which is our venue for the conference, is still not open. And I talked to the owner, and he was telling me that they're going to open as soon as they can, but still, I mean, Millennium Fandom is not first and foremost a restaurant. It is foremost a bar. It's a really cool place, but it's not gargantuan. And if you open a place up and you have to reduce your capacity, and then everybody has to stay apart, and you can't have enough seats and everything, it just doesn't work. So I will be announcing, however, a date for the new postponed conference very soon. And so those of you who bought a ticket, you'll be getting an email from me. And I may even have the ability to sell some new tickets as well if some people can't make the new date. So I'll keep you updated on that. But it has been, yeah, an insane week. And some good stuff has happened as well. The SpaceX launch on Saturday. That's pretty cool. That we now have officially privatized outer space travel, and of course that's opening the door for tourism, and everything seems to have gone well with the launch there. The U.S. is back into the business of launching people up to the space station. So, but you see, it's just like one thing after another, and I have been receiving a number of emails and messages from people saying, "Have you seen the news story?" It's a science story about the South Atlantic anomaly, which is a magnetic anomaly on Earth, growing, expanding, and splitting in two right now. And I'm going to explain what that means. But for people who are sending me the story, I'm sure this is just, it dovetails with all this chaos, potentially, because what we're talking about here is we are seeing these major changes and transitions among people here on Earth. Some of it really bad, some of it really good, but it's not just the people, it's also the Earth itself. And we're not just talking about temperatures and weather, we're talking about very tangible changes happening in our magnetic field, which determines our exposure to radiation, which affects not only just our technology, but ultimately affects all life on Earth. So here's what this is about. Okay, I've been interested in the South Atlantic anomaly for many years, because anytime you have a sort of a patch of Earth, an area on Earth where weird things, unusual things happen, I want to know, well, what is it about this environment that is enhancing the strange shit? The Bermuda Triangle would be an example of that. Okay, the Nevada Triangle, an example of that. There are lots of triangles around the world. There's the Dragon Triangle in Asia. There's the Alaskan Triangle, and you might wonder, like, why is it always triangles? Well, generally, triangles are the simplest way of just pinpointing a general area. So usually, 2 points is not enough, and 4 points is usually a little too specific. So picking out 3 points seems to be about right. So these triangles are not, I don't know that any of these triangles are like super clearly defined triangles. You should bear that in mind. But any of these triangles, they do indicate a sort of general patch of the Earth where one type of thing or another is more apt to happen. So when you talk about stuff like the Bermuda Triangle or the Nevada Triangle, a lot of it is anecdotal, because there are people who are saying, "Oh, I'm seeing ghosts," or "I saw an alien," or "there was an interdimensional portal." And these are things that scientists, the real scientists out there, roll their eyes at and call pseudoscience. But No, the South Atlantic anomaly. I mean, this is some serious stuff. This is no bullshit. Because scientists have to deal on a regular basis with the technological problems. So here's the basic background on what this is. The South Atlantic anomaly, also known as the SAA, that's less of a mouthful, is an area where the Earth's inner Van Allen radiation belt comes closest to the Earth's surface. This leads to an increased flux of energetic particles in this region and exposes orbiting satellites to higher than usual levels of radiation. Okay, so what that means is we have this magnetic field around planet Earth that acts like a force field. And we have all of this potentially dangerous and disruptive radiation that's blasting Earth at any given moment. Part of it's coming from the sun, part of it's just coming from other activity out there in the universe. But it's like we're being, blasted with all this potentially dangerous energy. And it's the magnetic field that kind of causes that to kind of bounce off and go around us. And the place where that intersection occurs most strongly is called the Van Allen belt, after the scientist who really sort of clarified and defined this phenomenon. So you know how, like, if you look at a magnet, like a bar magnet, under a piece of paper with some iron filings on it, you see these big loops around the poles of the magnet, north and south loops. And you see that that's where the filings kind of congregate. And so this is very similar to what we're dealing with the Earth's magnetic field. We have these big field loops around us, and these loops are keeping a lot of that radiation from coming down and hitting us. But this is a spot on the Earth which is east of South America and kind of west of Africa, where this field is weaker. This magnetic field is weaker, and it dips down closer to the surface. So when you're flying through there, or you're sending a satellite through there, you're getting exposed to a higher level of cosmic radiation. And they say that it's primarily created because of the non-concentricity of the Earth and its magnetic dipole. So in other words, Earth is kind of it's not a perfect sphere. It's inconsistent. And so, okay, so like here are some of the things that happen. You say, well, okay, fine. Well, what happens there? From a strict scientific point of view, the South Atlantic anomaly is of great significance to satellites, like astronomical satellites, and other spacecraft that orbit the Earth at several hundred kilometers altitude. So these orbits take satellites through the anomaly periodically, exposing them to several minutes of strong radiation caused by the trapped portions in the inner Van Allen belt. So they say the International Space Station, which I believe I was reading is something like 200 and I think it's close to like 250 miles from the surface of the Earth. They say at the International Space Station, they have to have an extra shielding to deal with the problem. The Hubble Space Telescope does not take observations while passing through this region. Astronauts are affected by this region. They see some peculiar, quote, shooting stars. So literally it's affecting their eyes, and their visual field. And they say that they believe this is the cosmic ray visual phenomena. So that would be kind of freaky, wouldn't it? You're flying along there, and all of a sudden you start seeing all kinds of weird little sparklies because this is affecting your eyes. It says passing through the South Atlantic anomaly is thought to be the reason for the failures of Global Star's network satellites in 2007. There was another experiment called the Pamela experiment, which detected positron levels. I mean, there you get really specific, but how about this? NASA has reported that modern laptops have crashed when space shuttle flights pass through the anomaly. There's a list of these things. They say here that the anomaly is believed to have started a series of events leading to the destruction of Hitomi, which was Japan's most powerful X-ray observatory. The anomaly disables direction finding mechanisms, causing satellites to rely solely on gyroscopes. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that people are mainly concerned about from a scientific point of view. And so now there's this article, and it's been published in a number of places, very legitimate places. This one is a version from sciencealert.com. It says the mysterious anomaly that's weakening Earth's magnetic field also seems to be splitting. Now, as I mentioned to you already, they're saying that it's growing, it's expanding, and it's splitting. So that's none of that's good. Okay, because how is it going to keep growing? And is this going to be like an amoeba that starts oozing into different parts of the world? So they start by explaining pretty much what I just explained to you about what this thing is. And then they go on to say in this article that says the whole thing could be, because they've got new imagery and everything. Let's see. It says new readings provided by the European Space Agency's swarm satellites show that within the past 5 years, a second center of minimum intensity has begun to open up within the anomaly. So what they're saying is that this suggests the whole thing could be even in the process of splitting up into two separate cells, with the original centered above the middle of South America and the new emerging cell appearing to the east, hovering off the coast of Southwest Africa. And as far as what this means, they say we just don't know. It's not a good thing. I mean, they say that this thing has been growing since 1970, so that's not that long ago. So they've seen significant increase just since then. And I don't tell you this kind of stuff because I'm trying to freak you out. That is not my goal whatsoever, is to freak you out. I mean, like I was saying, the world has always been in a state of change and even great turmoil. You know, my grandparents just recently died on my father's side, and they were both in their 90s. My grandfather fought in World War II. Now imagine that, you know, that we're talking about a war that the United States got involved in 1941, not that long ago. I mean, like I say, my grandfather fought in that, where the entire world was trying to kill each other by the most horrible means necessary, and we just finally started setting off nukes all over the place. And I mean, and that makes an impact when you set off nuclear bombs. And I'm not just talking about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I mean, all the testing. The planet is quite durable, and we can handle a lot of stuff, but there's no doubt that right now we are going through some type of a transitional state. Now, I would predict, just from my paranormal background, whatever that is worth, that just as an increase in your personal exposure to radiation can change the way you see things, change the way that your eyes function physiologically, so that astronauts get these sparklies and stuff, I think it's going to affect how you experience the world in general. That we might end up being able to have a larger percentage of the population that is able to see paranormal phenomena, ghosts, UFOs, interdimensional beings, cryptids. All that stuff is out there, but perceiving it has always been the trick. And some people have taken various types of psychedelic drugs and things like that that allows them to perceive this stuff. But it may be that we are going to get a different level and a different type of radiation exposure here, that you're not going to need any psychedelics to see some of these other things. And you could say, well, this is just a hallucination. Well, how do you know the difference? Maybe in some cases it is a hallucination, which means it's something that you create yourself. Or maybe it's just opening your ability to perceive other realms by affecting the brain and the way it functions, and or the eyes or other senses. And so that's just something to bear in mind. I certainly don't think it's going to dampen our paranormal experiences. If anything, I think they are going to increase. And so there is definitely a lot happening right now. Some of it's bad, some of it's good. And so that's why it's important for you to stay focused on the good things, especially since it's a big mystery. The whole thing is really a big mystery. And so therefore, let's just say, look, it's been a crazy week. It's been a crazy year. Last year was crazy too, but it just keeps getting crazier, doesn't it? So what can you do to look out for yourself? To say, look, I can't save the world necessarily, but I can do whatever I can to give myself a positive experience here, and the people around me that I love and care about, and the creatures around me and the environment around me that I love and care about. Instead of going out there and trying to force your way of thinking on everybody else, how can you create a good, positive, peaceful environment? So listen to this. I recently did a podcast about a book I read that was written by an author who claimed that exposing yourself to red light, certain types of strong red light, even just for a few minutes a few times a week, can have a strong therapeutic effect, can make you physically healthier. And I want to always repeat here, I don't talk about medical stuff usually or anything like that, because I'm not a doctor and you should never take medical advice from me. I was just telling you what this dude had written, who is a proponent of exposing yourself to red light. If you want all the details, you're going to have to go back and listen to that podcast. It was only like 2 or 3 podcasts before this one. You'll be able to easily find it, and I've got all the information there that this guy was presenting in his book. And I was saying, I don't know if there's anything to this or not, but since then I have gotten a lot of emails from people who listen to that podcast saying, well, I know you've been experimenting with it. Has anything happened, to you either way? And many people have written me telling me about their own personal positive experiences. For example, there was a woman who said, I've been using red light for years. My hair started thinning, and so I started using it on that, and it works for that. And you may have even seen some of these commercials. There are even hats out there that will shine a red light on your scalp. She said, my husband and I both have arthritis. I think at least one of them has rheumatoid arthritis. She says that it's helped tremendously with that. I have gotten just a bunch of emails from people saying that they use this red light therapy and it works for them. So I didn't go out and buy like an official red light machine, but what I did do was I bought just a red waterproof flashlight that I could put in my shower, so that while I'm showering butt ass naked, I'm bathed in red light. For those of you who consider that to be an arousing visual. And then also, one of the listeners of the show said, he goes, I'm going to get one of these red bulbs that plant growers use to help plants out. And I said, that's a good idea. I'll try that too. So I also got a red bulb that I would just shine in the bathroom in general. So basically, you'll see why I'm telling you this in a minute. But what I've been doing whenever it's shower time for me, um, I've lived in houses in the past that have a window in the bathroom, but my main bathroom in this condo I'm in doesn't have any windows. If you turn out the lights, it's pitch black dark, so I can make it whatever color I want to in there. And I do have some interesting lighting effects in there. Sometimes I give myself a little spa experience. Um, so I've got the whole thing for the past week or so. I've had the whole thing just bathed in red light. From the time I get in there and undress, there's a red light shining. Then when I get in the shower, there's another red light. And these are not lights that were designed for this, they're just strong red lights. And another thing I'll mention, because while I'm thinking of it, is I don't recall seeing in the book or anywhere else whether or not you should only use the red light while you're doing your exposure. So what I mean is, okay, can you have the red light on, but also have your regular light on, like your regular white light, your incandescent light, or your LED or whatever? And would that conflict? I don't recall seeing that addressed, but I decided that I would only use red light because I do know that when you turn on lights of multiple colors, sometimes they can conflict with each other. That's just a basic part of understanding optics. So if you have a white light that's putting out a bunch of frequencies, it might dampen, the red light. So I've just done nothing but red light while I've been in that setting. And what I can tell you is this. It's very difficult sometimes for me to gauge whether or not something is or is not working because I do a lot of stuff. I'm experimenting with a lot of things to improve my life. But it just so happens that in the midst of me doing this red light exposure, I also went to the doctor to have my regular physical and checkup, and they did a complete, very extensive lab on me, and everything was great. And now there is one exception. I do have a family history of high cholesterol, so that's something I have to keep an eye on, and I keep that under control. But otherwise, it was surprising to me because I am not a health guru by any stretch of the imagination. I've never liked exercise. I have taken a lot of crazy risks in my life. I put myself in a lot of dangerous positions. I have enjoyed the finer things in life. But now that I'm getting older, I definitely, I'm winding down more. I require more sleep. I try to get away from the technology a little bit more. If I go to a bar, I'm not ordering the whiskey or the gin or the hard stuff. I order some wine, and I even make my own wine here at home because, for one thing, it's fun, and you get to experiment with different flavors. But also because that you have quality control. You're not going out there and buying something that's been processed with all kinds of chemicals in it so that it has a good shelf life and clarity and all that. As a matter of fact, I have a new batch of homemade wine that should be ready in about 4 days. So I always look forward to that. I'm going to be doing a little clarifying and bottling of my next batch of homemade wine. I'll tell you how it turns out. It's fun to play with different things: strawberries, grapes, apples, you name it, and make some flavors. But at least if you go to the grocery store and you know what you're doing, you can press your own stuff. As I mentioned, for those of you who may have an interest in making your own wine at some point, I will do a podcast about that. But my point is, I am taking precautions as I age and taking more vitamins and shit like that. But I am not a health guru. Okay, I mean, I try to keep my weight down, but I love it all, man. I love all the fattening stuff, and so you know, can I say that the red light is helping me. I cannot come right out and say that at this point, but what I can say is I found it was interesting that my lab numbers were even better than I figured they would be. And that's one of the things I've been doing. So that combined with the feedback that I've been getting from people who are using this or who have been using it for a long time is leading me to believe that there may be something to the red light exposure all over your naked body, at least, for one session, 2 or 3 times a week or whatever works for you. You kind of feel like you're a photographer developing film in a dark room. It's not irritating though. It doesn't enrage you or make you feel pissed that everything's red. It's actually kind of relaxing, surprisingly soothing. So I tell you this because here I am in the shower, bathed in warm water and red light. And to show you just how valuable my shower time is to me, often when I'm in the shower, instead of just listening to music, which, like I say, sometimes I do some relaxing spa music or whatever. Sometimes, though, I'll just listen to an audiobook. There are more books out there than I'll ever be able to read, right? It reminds me of the Twilight Zone episode with Burgess Meredith, if that means anything to you, where he never had time to read all the books. And anyway, so that's a good thing for me to do sometimes. Listen to, a section of an audiobook while I'm in the shower. And I'm not distracted by, anything that's too attention consuming, basically. So, just recently, one of my favorite authors, Joe Vitale, published a new book. Joe Vitale is a great self-transformation author. And in fact, just, he and I, we've corresponded, and just recently he published or posted online a picture of himself holding up a copy of my book, Use the Force, A Jedi's Guide to the Law of Attraction. Holding it up with a big smile, and that was a real surprise, and it meant a lot to me. I was very honored. And Joe Vitale has this new book out called Money Loves Speed, in which he's talking about, just techniques to help you stay on the ball, man, and attract abundance. And when I listen to all kinds of books, and I read books, and I watch documentaries, and I hear a lot of the same stuff over and over again, but whenever I get a good little nugget, then I try to pass it on to you. If something really seems like simple, effective, and practical to me, then I come onto this podcast and I tell you about it. So anyway, I was listening to the audiobook, and he was talking about a very basic type of manifestation experiment that you can do. And to be honest with you, I don't remember exactly the context of this, but he was saying that, a butterfly is a striking thing that we are all familiar with. Everybody knows what a butterfly is. They stand out. But they're really not all that common, not commonly seen for most people. So most people, don't usually have a butterfly in their house, and butterflies are usually seasonal. And so he says, let's just take a butterfly, and let's talk about a butterfly, and let's think about a butterfly. And so he goes on a little bit about butterflies, and then he said, now I bet you that in the next 24 hours or so, you're going to see a butterfly, because I've put this in your mind. It's like a suggestion. And you could say, well, I guess that just means that I'm likely to see a butterfly that I would have not noticed, and now I'm going to notice it, but maybe not. Maybe what you're doing is actually manifesting the thing. You're creating the thing, right? So he says, give it a try, see what happens, enjoy the butterflies. So I don't have any recent memory of seeing a butterfly. And it doesn't have to be a real physical butterfly. It could be a butterfly on TV, or even like in a magazine, you turn the page of a magazine, or you walk into a room and there's a painting. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't want to go on the internet and specifically look up a butterfly because that would defeat the purpose if you go looking for. But you're supposed to just be like, okay, that's in my subconscious. Let's see what happens. But if I had approached it just that way, then I would have said, okay, I'm going to keep this to myself, and I'll know whether or not I see the butterfly. But I decided I would put my own unique spin on this experiment. And so here's what I did. Of course, Lauren and I, it's just the two of us living together. We don't have any kids or anything like that. And we share a lot of the same experiences, of course. So I did not tell her at all about this butterfly thing. Not at all. And I know that she has not been exposed to this audiobook or this material. She knew nothing about it. So I got a little piece of paper and I wrote butterfly on the paper, and I folded it up, and I went into the kitchen and I said, Lauren, I want to do an experiment. And I said it's a manifestation experiment. I said this is not a magic trick or anything like that, because even though I generally speaking, I do not go out and do magic tricks and stuff, even though I know some, because I don't want people to accuse me of being a fraud if I go out and I do some little fun magic trick for kids or whatever. So I don't usually do that, but if I get some trick, sometimes I'll do it for her just for fun, and I like to learn magic tricks so I can tell if somebody's trying to fool me or bullshit me. So so I said, this is not a magic trick. This is an experiment in manifestation. I said, I want you to put this piece of paper in your pocket. And I said, later on, throughout the day, I may tell you to reach in your pocket and take out this piece of paper and read what it says. However, if I don't say anything to you by tomorrow, then you can feel free to take it out and look at it yourself, and then I will explain to you what this was all about. And Lauren's like, totally fine. Now, because in my life, this is probably the least weird thing I've ever done. So I'm thinking, okay, if we're sitting there watching TV tonight or something, and a butterfly appears on a commercial, I'll say, oh shit, you see that, Lauren? And she'll go, yeah. And I'll say, take that piece of paper out of your pocket and check out what it says. And then she would say, butterfly. And then I would explain. So here she puts this thing in her pocket. I tell her to keep it with her, and right there in her pocket. So the rest of the night, I can't even remember what we did. But there was never a moment when a butterfly came into my awareness at all. As a matter of fact, I've been so busy this past week that I kind of just even almost instantly forgot about it, because I was thinking, well, this will, if I see a butterfly, my brain will jog. And so, but it didn't happen. So anyway, the next day, so Lauren was, let's see, we bought something, and she has her own big bathroom and her own big bedroom area, and I got my own big bathroom and bedroom area, so that if we can't share the space, then we can each also have our own space. So for example, like if I've got to do some kind of late night radio show, then I can be here on my side of the house, sleeping at my own schedule without disturbing her, or you get the pictures. Like we can spend the night in the same room, or we can separate if I'm working on some kind of product or project or whatever. So I went into her section, and we were bringing this thing in there, and I was about to walk out because I had something else to do, and Lauren goes, oh, I just remembered I have this paper in my pocket that you gave me yesterday. And I was like, oh, yeah. I said, well, yeah, it didn't work actually. It was a failed experiment, but I said, I'll explain to you what I was testing out. She goes, okay. So she reached into her pocket. What I'm about to tell you, folks, I am not exaggerating a bit. Okay, this is my hand on a stack of Bibles, my words to the ear of God. All right. She took the paper out of her pocket as I'm looking at her. Right as she unfolded the paper, my eyes turned away, and it was like ice water down my back, because right there in the corner of the room, as soon as I turned, was this easel sitting there. And the easel has this painting on it that a giraffe made for us one time. I've told you about this before. As a matter of fact, I've even said if anybody would want to buy this painting, I would sell it for $1 million if Lauren will let me, and give some of that money to charity and stuff. Not all of it. Let's get real here, folks. It's a giraffe painting, but you get the picture. So anyway, on top of the giraffe painting, Lauren at some point had propped up a card that I bought for her long time ago, called a Love Pop card. It's a pop-up card. And I don't recall what occasion I bought it for. If it was, like a birthday or some special anniversary, I don't remember. But guess what the big pop-up was? It was a big, beautiful butterfly. Now, I'd completely forgotten that I ever bought her this card. And the conditions of that whole scenario just added up beautifully, so that here I would be standing there next to her when she remembered, oh, what's on this piece of paper, having no idea what was on the piece of paper. And the moment her eyes hit the paper, my eyes saw that butterfly, and I said, oh, fuck. Oh, my God. And then I explained to her what was going on, and she lit up, and she was like, yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty amazing. Now, the timing of that, was so perfect that was better. That was better than if I'd seen it on a TV show or as an article in a magazine or something like that, because that it was almost like it was meant to happen at the last possible moment, so that I would see the instantaneous connection there between her experience and my experience. And I thought to myself, that is such an easy thing to do. We should do this every day. Obviously, you're going to use something different every day. But I told her, I said, now I want you to come up with an object. It doesn't have to be an animal. Come up with an object, come up with something, and write it down on a piece of paper and give it to me. And we'll just keep doing this and see how good we get at materializing these things. So you can do this on your own if you want to, which is how it was originally presented by Joe Vitale, which is you just think of something. And for now, let's make it an object, because you could also eventually turn it into something more complex, like a situation. Like, I want a parking space to materialize, which is something I've done a million times. But you may not always need a parking space. So just come up every day, or as often as you can, with something that is reasonable, is realistic, that might appear. I mean, and which I'm in Las Vegas, okay, so I could be like, I want to see a man on a trapeze breathing fire as he flips down on top of an elephant. And that would be not impossible living in Las Vegas. But now you have to adjust this to where you are and come up with, again, something that seems like this is something I might encounter, but not something that's guaranteed to encounter. And also, you don't have to see the real thing, just the representation of it. A picture, somebody says the word. I mean, somehow or other, you come across it. You'll understand. If you start doing that in a very simple way every single day, I bet you, and I don't know for a fact, but I bet you that you'll get to the point to where you start saying, man, this is working for me every time. Like every day I can come up with something and I can manifest it. And talk about a great, simple, fun exercise that keeps your day kind of suspenseful, that keeps you engaged with your surroundings, and that is exercising whatever's happening in your mind, in your brain, to create the reality that you want to experience. So you can do this by yourself, or you can bring a partner into it, like Lauren and I have done, where you give the other person the note, and that way you'll have even more objective, provable, verifiable data in your experimentation process. So simple. I bet you kids are going to be great at doing this. So please give it a try. Feel free to use the butterflies or whatever you want to, and then send me your stories, okay? Send me your experiences. You can always contact me if you go to joshuapwarren.com. There's no period after the P. joshuapwarren.com. Scroll down and you'll find my email address there. And I read every email. I do not always have the time to respond to every email. Right now, I'm getting an average of over 1,000 original personal emails per day. I'm not talking about including spam and stuff like that. I mean, over 1,000 per day. It's impossible. It's impossible for me to reply to everyone. It's physically impossible. And the reason is, look at me. I go on these TV shows on like Discovery Channel. I go on Coast to Coast AM. I'm about to be on another TV show in June. I'll be telling you about shortly. I do all that stuff plus this, and been doing it a long time. A lot of people email me, so I will read your email. Let me know if you go to joshuapwarren.com. And in fact, I would like to share with you a couple of emails that I got that I thought was really cool. I got these are actually a couple from people in Europe, two different guys in Europe. And this is a short one. This is from a man. I have his name and I have where he lives, but he wants to keep his personal details private, which I understand. And the reason I know who he is because he ordered a couple of things from my curiosity shop. He went there and he ordered the Finding Your Magic kit, which every single one of you should have. You really should. If you really want to figure out how to start manifesting things, great things like crazy, money, relationships, good fortune, all that stuff, wellness, you need to get Finding Your Magic kit. It's an ebook that you instantly get. It's an audio book that you instantly get. And there are some other surprises. You get to hear me read the book to you, and then I also send you a wand. So he bought that kit and he got the Orgone Pyramid wand that came with it, which he loves. And then he also turned around and he bought the Forces of Nature magnetic wand, which is currently listed on my curiosity shop. It's the one that has the quartz crystal on the top and then a coil and then two sets of opposing magnets that are building up a potential energy. So he got those two things, the Finding Your Magic kit and the Forces of Nature wand. And here's what he wrote. He wrote, his subject line was, "My wish finally came true, and it was fast. He said, "Hey, Joshua P. Warren, I want to let you know my wish has come true, utilizing both wands to maximize their potential. Although my life is personal and private, so I won't go into full details, I just want to let you know that my one and only wish has been fulfilled. It was an impossible wish, but it came true. Let's just say I may end up marrying this certain individual, which is all I can say for now. Thank you so much." Marrying. He said this was impossible. Now, looks like he's going to get married to somebody. And you see, that's the thing. Yes, a lot of people just get wands and manifestation tools from my curiosity shop and use them for attracting money and stuff like that. But I'm getting a lot of love stuff, a lot of romance stuff. Let me read you another one. And by the way, the next one I'm going to read you, this comes from a guy who didn't buy anything from me. All he did was go to my website and take advantage of the free stuff that I have there. In this particular case, the sigils, because I have tons of free stuff you can use at joshuapwarren.com. If you want to go to the curiosity shop and you want to experiment with some of that stuff and buy some of that stuff, it's there for you. But there's also free stuff. So this guy also, I got his email just hours ago, and so I haven't had a chance to ask him if I could give his name, but I kind of think he probably wouldn't want me to do that when you hear what he had to say. So it's kind of a long email, but he starts off by saying, I know who you are, but I'm not an expert on your work. He says, I've heard the odd interview or listened to the odd podcast here and there that have been out, but I'd never visited your website until a couple of days ago. All right, so folks, I'm going to pause and say this is not a guy who obviously has spent a lot of time learning about what I try to do here. And he says, for some reason you popped into my head and I got the feeling there may be a resource on your website I should check out, so I did. And then he goes on to say, the first thing that caught my eye were your sigils. The reason being that recently I've become interested in this. He says, I'm pretty much blind to this as I have no background in this anyway, but he goes on to say, I've had some good results. And he said, let's see. Okay, so the one that he chose first was the money sigil. Now, a sigil, of course, is just a pattern. It's just a symbol. It's a magical symbol. And I have them for free on my website. And all you do is you print them out and you stick them around and look at them throughout the day, or you can save them to an electronic device like your wallpaper on your smartphone or your computer or whatever. You just look at the symbol, and that's all it is. It's like an antenna for a certain type of energy. So he picked the one for money. And he said, I know the intent is in the title, but I didn't even pay attention to that. I just right-clicked one of these things and assigned it to my desktop. Well, within an hour, he says, I did my banking at the time I normally do every day and noticed there was this unexplained deposit in my account. It wasn't much. I'm in the UK, so it was in pounds, about 20 pounds, but it was completely unexpected and from a source that I did not recognize. About an hour later, there was a ping on my phone from my credit card. The same amount had been put onto my credit card, and this happened a total of 4 different times within an hour of me saving that sigil to my desktop. Turns out that a company I had purchased domain names from years ago had at various times over the last couple of years overcharged me. Now, one could argue that it wasn't really getting money as it was money I was owed anyway, but I never would have caught it. And these accounts have been overcharging me for a couple of years at different times. And he says they were all refunded within an hour of me saving that sigil to my desktop. He said, so, there you go, dude, well done. He says, I now completely, says, I believe in the power of these things. But just as a little test, I went into my folder and I looked at the titles for some others and I found the one called Romance. Yeah, let's try that one because there's about as much chance of me getting romance today as there was unexpected money popping into my accounts. So I right-clicked and saved the romance sigil to my desktop. I left my computer on as my office area is in a location that my wife would regularly walk past with the desktop image catching the corner of her eye. It took about 45 minutes before she stopped, looked at the desktop, and asked, "What the hell is that?" Now, this guy obviously is a bit of a joker because he says, I told her it was a symbol I found on, or excuse me, was a symbol found on some crashed UFO that was in Bigfoot country, found by an Indian tribe. He said, I figured why not up the bar and just put her as deep into the realm of turned off as I could. This was an experiment after all. He said the words that came out of her mouth next can be described in no other way than paranormal. Quote, "It's a shame you're busy," she said. "I was hoping we could go upstairs." End quote. I think we know what the keywords are in his house, my dear listeners. So he says, so good job on the sigils. So far, extensive laboratory testing has concluded the medicine is good. Then he goes on and tells me about some other things that he found helpful on the site, like the Kabbalion. And he said, I just wanted to say thanks for sharing, and I hope you and your family are well during these completely crazy, mind-boggling times. Again, that's from a man in the UK. And you know what? I could just do nothing but testimonial shows. But at least I want to pop them out there here and there for you once in a while so that you can see what other people are experiencing when they're doing exactly what you can do. So if you go to my website or you listen to this podcast, you're just like everybody else out there who does that. You have an open mind and you say, you know what, let's just see. If you don't have any money, that's fine. Go there, start with the free stuff and see where that takes you. But hey, if you're like me and you want to experiment with some of the more tangible tools, that's there for you as well. And of course, that is why, before I wrap this up, I must go ahead and tell you, once again, this is your last notice if you would like to get the true golden ratio antenna pendant. So I'm not going to tell you again what that is because I did a whole podcast about that less than a week ago, and you can listen to the podcast. But this is not something that I'm going to be carrying in my curiosity shop. I'm doing this just because I made one for me, and I figure, you know what, I'll try making one batch for those of you who would like to have such a thing. It incorporates the true golden ratio in order to strike a sacred balance. And basically, if you feel a lot of chaos in your life, its purpose is to neutralize negative, disharmonious energies and create order and positive flow. Okay, so this, in your personal sphere, the idea is that this symbol will create harmony, order, wellness, charm, and good fortune. It's actually made of gold. So I'm only going to take orders for this batch. I'm going to stop in the next probably 48 hours. So I'm sorry. I know many people will say, oh, I missed this. Well, no exceptions. I'm going to do this one batch and that's the cutoff. So as soon as I cut it off, I'm going to order the batch, ship it out. If you want to get all the details, go to joshuapwarren.com. Click the link to the Curiosity Shop. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, and if you see it, it may not be there by the time you get there, but if you see what looks like a little golden, it kind of looks like a spiral when it's small, but it's more like a labyrinth. If you see that and it's clickable, all the information will be there, and that will be your only opportunity to get one of these things, because I'm going to turn right around and have the batch made. So again, go to joshuapwarren.com, click the link to the Curiosity Shop. And I'm so behind on cool podcasts that I'm going to be doing soon. I want to give you one, probably my next one, about the Knights Templar, and their hidden treasures and how that connects to symbols and radiology and, excuse me, radionics. And then also, uh, David Weatherly, my buddy David Weatherly, he has a new book out that is kick ass about weird creatures in Alaska. He's going to let me read some of that to you. I just have a lot of stuff backed up that I'll be sharing with you on some upcoming podcasts that hopefully I'll get to over the next few days. So you'll enjoy all of this stuff. So make sure while you're at joshuapwarren.com, you sign up for the free e-newsletter. I'll be giving away somebody randomly $100 for just signing up for my free e-newsletter. You know how I do that. I'm doing that again soon. And while you're there, please click the link to this podcast. Tell all your friends about this podcast. Help everybody out. Help them out. Help them manifest. Help them do great positive things for themselves as well. That's the least you can do. Just tell people to listen to this podcast. It's called Joshua P. Warren Daily. If you click that link, you'll see all the podcasts going back here for over 2 years. It's always free. It's short. It's commercial free. It's uncensored, and it's independent. So why wouldn't you want to share that with your friends and loved ones and give them some of this information, because knowledge is power, right? When you click that link, you'll find you can subscribe to this podcast through various means, various platforms. People listen all over the world. Or you can just follow me on Twitter at Joshua P. Warren, at Joshua P. Warren, and I will usually tweet when a new one is available. So that is it for today. Hang in there. And remember, no matter what kind of fear and chaos the media is selling you to make you buy their commercials, you just keep focused on your personal sphere and your friends and your loved ones and all the organisms and creatures and pets and things that you really care about, and give yourself that aura, your realistic experience of your reality. Abundance, happiness, wellness. Do it for yourself and the people that you care about. So, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your interest and support. Thank you for staying curious. And I will talk to you again soon.